So let's look at our vocabulary for our close reading on Gail Gibbons' pumpkin book. We've got vine, prickly, jagged, and tendrils. And do you remember last time we took some predictions and we put them up there, and then at the end we're going to look and see where we were with our predictions, right? So vine, what do you guys think a vine is? And you can think about also what we're doing our drawing on Friday. What do you think a vine is? Avni?
A wall plant.
Say that one more time.
Wall plant.
A wall plant. Okay. Great. Come on up, Avni. Okay, take a couple more predictions. Arush, what do you think?
A swinging rope.
A swinging rope. Great. Come on up. One more. Aiden.
A rope that is swinging from a tree.
A swinging rope. That's kind of like this one. So I'll put a check here because you had a similar prediction. How about one more prediction that's a little bit different? Sharva?
A type of green vine.
A type of green. But that's what we're trying to figure out, Sharva. What is a vine? So can you? A type of green.
A type of green leaf.
A type of green leaf. Okay. Here you go, Sharva. All right. Let's look at our second vocabulary word, prickly. What do you think prickly means? I like how Harshini is raising her hand. Yes, sweetheart. Sharp. Come on up. Pooja. Something that is bumpy. Okay. Something that is bumpy. Okay, here you go. Andres, what do you think?
Something is pointy.
Something is pointy. Something is pointy. Here you go. And Fernando, what do you think? Sharp. We have sharp up here. Let me put a check here. All right. Anything else? Kendall. Okay. Something that is like a cactus. All right. Let's go on to jagged. What do you think jagged means, Shiv? Curly. Come on up. All right. What do you think jagged means, Nikhil?
Like sharp edges.
Sharp edges. Okay. Mason.
Bouncy.
Bouncy. Okay, Mason. And Aditya. Bumpy. All right, come on up. Mason, over here, honey. That way I don't have to keep pulling it. Okay, let's move on to tendrils. What do you guys think tendrils mean? Mr. Ben, what do you think?
Oh, tendrils is a vine that curls.
A vine
on certain plants.
that curls. Did you say a vine that curls on certain plants?
Yeah.
Okay. Come on up. Great. All right. Who else has a prediction of tendrils? What do we think? Simone.
Something that is curly.
Something. Come on up, sweetheart. That is curly. Okay. Thanks, Ben. Have a seat. All right. Arush.
A thing that hooks on.
A thing that hooks on. Okay, come on up. Do any of you guys have a prediction of what tendrils means? Tendrils. Remember we were drawing the tendrils on Friday? You want to take a chance? It's a leaf? Okay. You want to describe it anymore? No? Okay. It's a leaf. Excellent. Here we go. All right. Are you guys ready? If you hear any of our vocabulary words while I read, touch your nose. Okay. The Pumpkin Book by Gail Gibbons.
Gail Gibbons is the best book.
Do you like Gail Gibbons?
Yeah. He writes the best book.
She? Pumpkins come in all shapes and sizes. That one's really big.
And they're sheep pumpkins.
Pumpkins are members of the squash family. There are many different kinds of pumpkins. Small pumpkins, big pumpkins, round pumpkins, tall pumpkins. Gardeners and farmers call them pumpkin varieties. Some pumpkins have a smooth skin and others have lots of bumps. Wow, look at this one. That's as big as she is, huh? This one's called Dill's Atlantic Giant.
Wow.
And then look at this one.
That's so tiny.
Fits in her hand. That one's called Jack B. Little.
What's the other
This one's called Baby Bear.
one?
This one's called Connecticut Field. This one's called Lumina. This one's called Big Max. This bumpy one's called Red October. This one's called Small Sugar Pie. This one is called, I like this one, Trick or Treat.
Such a funny name. I like that funny name. Yeah, me too.
In the springtime, when the sun's rays begin to warm the soil, it is planting time. Some gardeners turn the soil to get it ready to plant a small pumpkin patch. A pumpkin patch is where pumpkins are grown. So it's like a big area of pumpkins where they put the seeds. Some farmers use their plows to slice through and turn over the dirt. The field will eventually be a huge pumpkin patch. So do you see how they're making lines in the dirt? When they make those lines in the soil, they're getting the soil ready to put the seeds along those lines. That way when the pumpkins grow, they have even amounts of space. The soil is ready. It is time to plant the pumpkin seeds. The beginning of a pumpkin is curled up inside each pumpkin seed. Food is stored there too. The seed has a seed coat on the outside to protect it. The bigger the seed, the bigger the variety of pumpkin that will grow. So here's a drawing of what a seed looks like. So on the inside, there's the beginning of a pumpkin, all inside the seed, just waiting to start. Then on the outside, do you see this thick white area? That's the seed coat. So it protects the seed inside so that it stays safe. And all this other space here is food for this little pumpkin plant to be able to use when it first starts. Sometimes pumpkin seeds are planted in rows. Other times they are planted in small circular areas called hills. Several shallow holes are poked into the hill, and one pumpkin seed is dropped into each hole and covered with dirt. Each hill should be about 3 feet to 6 feet apart to give plants lots of room to grow. So they need about this much space. Here's 3 feet. They need about this much space around. So if I was to make a big hill around this yardstick, that's how much space a pumpkin would grow. But if you're using like the big pumpkins, it would need twice this much space.
Oh!
All the way around just to grow. Okay? So here they're making the lines, and here she's doing a hill. So if pumpkins are planted in circles, it's called a hill. And if they're planted in rows, they just get spaced out. So they need 3 to 6 feet of space. A pumpkin seed won't sprout until the dirt is warm and water has soaked the seed to soften its coat. Once the seed coat breaks open, a root begins to grow down into the soil. It takes in water and minerals from the soil for food. Just like when we learned about how seeds grow from seed to plant, right? After about 1 week, 2 leaves appear where each pumpkin seed was planted. These smooth leaves are called seed leaves. What are these called?
Seed.
Yeah, they're called seed leaves. They begin to make more food for the plant from the sunlight and the air. After a few days, small pumpkin vines, let me read that again. After a few days, small pumpkin vine leaves appear. These leaves look different. They are prickly and have rough, jagged edges. More new vine leaves grow. Stems begin to grow and twist, crawling around the ground as they become vines. The vines grow thicker and thicker. Do you see how skinny they are at first? Now they're getting thicker. Does this one look familiar, this picture?
Yes. Is that what we're drawing?
They grow curly tendrils that wrap themselves around other parts of the plant to help spread the vines. Gold-colored flowers begin to bloom. Gold-colored flowers. What's going to grow here? Do you guys know?
Pumpkin.
A pumpkin begins to grow when a grain of pollen.
Pollination.
You guys remember that? Awesome.
I'm touching my nose.
A pumpkin begins to grow when a grain of pollen from the stamen of a male pumpkin flower lands on the stigma of a female pumpkin flower. This is called
Pollination.
Sometimes pollen moves from flower to flower when the wind blows. Bees and other insects help to pollinate too. Pollen rubs on and off their bodies as they travel from flower to flower in search of nectar. The female flower has a small green ball beneath its blossom. Do you guys see the blossom here? It's starting to die, right? The flower. And then you see the small green ball right down here underneath the blossom? Okay. Yes. When the flower is pollinated, the little ball begins to grow. It is a very, very small pumpkin. Over time, it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. The pumpkin skin begins to turn from green to orange. All of the pumpkins in the pumpkin patch begin to turn orange. In the fall, when the vines begin to dry up and die, it is harvest time. Do you guys know what it means when it's harvest time?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Sharva.
It means you take the pumpkins out.
Yeah, it's time that you can go pick the pumpkins. So what has to happen to the leaves before it's harvest time? What Emily? Yeah, when the leaves start to die and the vines dry up, then it's time to harvest the pumpkin. It usually takes from 80 to 120 days depending on the variety, for a seed to grow into a ripened pumpkin. So which pumpkin do you think is going to take 80 days? Let's go back to the very beginning.
The biggest.
And which one do you think is going to take 120 days?
The biggest.
So let me ask Anshi, because she's raising her hand. Anshi,
The biggest.
the biggest is going to take how many days? 80 or 120?
120.
Oh, okay. Is that what you guys think?
Yeah.
Why would it take 120 days if it's the bigger pumpkin? Aiden?
Because it's bigger than the rest of the pumpkin.
Okay, and then how many days do you think the small pumpkins are going to take about?
80.
Andre? 20? No, it takes 80 to 120. So what do you think? 80. Good. So it takes longer for big pumpkins to grow, right? That makes sense. They need more time to grow. They need more time for food.
Yeah.
Let's go back to where we were. So after that happens, it's ready to pick if it feels hard on the outside and sounds hollow when it's tapped. Oh, that's something that I learned that's new.
I know.
So when you knock on a pumpkin, if it sounds like it's empty on the inside, which means it's hollow, then it's ready to be picked. Often, shears are used to clip the pumpkins from their vines, leaving about 3 inches of the stem. The stem helps to keep the harvest pumpkin from getting moldy. During the fall, more and more pumpkins of many shapes and sizes appear at roadside stands and in stores. Raise your hand if you have gotten a pumpkin from the store before.
Not from the store.
I asked to raise your hand if you got a pumpkin from the store before. Okay, handstand. Raise your hand if you've gone and actually picked a pumpkin at a pumpkin patch or at a farm. Nice. Handstand. How many of you have ever grown a pumpkin in your own backyard? You have? Whoa. Harshini, what kind of pumpkin did you grow? You don't know, was it a big one or a little one? Medium. When did you plant it? Did you plant it in the winter, spring, summer, or fall? End of summer. And then when was the pumpkin ready to be picked?
It's still growing.
It's still growing. Excellent.
Oh.
So, at the beginning of the book, does anyone remember when they said a good time to start planting pumpkin seeds were? Nikhil.
Summer?
Not the summer. Ben?
Spring.
Spring. So if you plant in the spring, the pumpkin will be ready for the fall. Harshini's pumpkin, they planted in the summer, so it's not going to be ready till maybe the winter, huh? Great. Can you bring us some pictures? Fall makes people think of country fairs. Sometimes awards are given for the biggest, the prettiest, or the strangest pumpkin grown. The biggest pumpkin ever grown was in New York State in 1996. It weighed about as much as a small car. 1,061 pounds. At fairs, there are pumpkin pie tasting contests too. When the Pilgrims came to the New World, friendly Native American Indians showed them how to plant pumpkins. Often the Indian women were the pumpkin farmers of their tribes. The Pilgrims ate pumpkins every day in different forms, such as pumpkin bread, pumpkin pie, and pumpkin seed cereal. Thanksgiving reminds people of the Pilgrims' first harvest season. They wanted to give thanks for the food they would have through the cold winter months. They celebrated by having a Thanksgiving feast. Halloween is on October 31st. A long time ago, people believed that ghosts, witches, and goblins roamed around at night. Some people built bonfires to scare them away. Later, October 31st was called All Hallows Even, which means Holy Evening. It was the night before a church festival called All Hallows or All Saints' Day. All Hallows Even was shortened to Halloween. So Halloween used to originally be called All Hallows Even. Today, Halloween is celebrated in different ways. You okay, Ditia? Okay, sit crisscross. There are pumpkins. It's great fun to carve pumpkins into what you want them to be. Funny pumpkins, scary pumpkins, beautifully carved pumpkins. Some people place a candle or a light inside and light it so the pumpkin will shine in all its glory on Halloween night. What is a pumpkin called when you carve something into it and put a light into it? What is that called, Vaishnavi?
Jack-o'-lantern.
A jack-o'-lantern. Excellent. And I'll read you guys this later on how to carve a pumpkin. But if you're going to carve a pumpkin, you need to have mom and dad help you, right?
Yeah, I didn't go myself.
Other people decorate pumpkins with paint, glitter, and other decorations. These pumpkins can last a long time because they haven't been carved. No two pumpkins are alike. They all have their very own personalities. Do you see some of the things that they drew on there? So my son made like a witch's hat at school with a paper plate and paper. And then he put it on his pumpkin. And then he drew a face on his pumpkin. So that's really good. All lined up on Halloween night, they are a glowing sight to behold. Isn't it amazing that all this began with a few small pumpkin seeds? Glow pumpkins, glow. Look at that, glow pumpkins, glow. So these all started out as what? Seeds. Absolutely. Very good. All right, I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to turn and talk about what you learned about pumpkins. Who can share with me what they have done with a pumpkin before? One thing that you've done with a pumpkin. Aiden.
I've done with the pumpkin before that I put it outside and then I put it on top of my house and it was glowing.
You put a pumpkin outside. Did you do something to the pumpkin before you put it outside?
I put a scary face on it.
Did you draw it or did you have mom and dad help you carve it? The knife.
I drew it.
You drew it. Okay. Great. So you drew on a pumpkin face. Omni, what have you done with a pumpkin before?
I carved it with my mom and dad.
You helped to carve it with mom and dad. All right. We did a good job. So the next time when we do our close reading, I'm going to give you guys the words and we're going to use our comprehension symbols. Can you guys remind me what those symbols are?
Yes.
What are they?
Symbol.
What do you use if you understand part of the story? What do you use? Harshini? A check mark is for if we understand the story. What about if we think something's important? What if something's important? Andres?
A star.
A star. We think something's important. What do we put when we are reading and we learn something new or it's like, whoa, I didn't know that before. Matthew? An exclamation mark. And what do we put if we have a question on something or we don't know what a word means or we aren't sure? What do we do? Ashra, a question mark. That's going to be next time.